I'm Maureen Ballatori, and this is Spilled Salt, a podcast on the thrills and spills from the food, beverage, and agriculture industries. Today's guest is Joel Kraft. He's the executive chef at St. John Fisher University in Rochester, New York. And St. John Fisher has ranked number one in New York State for the best campus food in 2023. They also ranked number 5 in the country for best campus food. So today we get a little bit of background from Joel about why that is. And he equates a lot of it to, spoiler alert, his team. But they've also done some pretty remarkable things at St. John Fisher College related to the NFL as well. You'll hear some reference on that there today. And as always, a background about Joel's experience for what led him from a track in fine dining and country clubs to the university scene and how he feels about that change. Enjoy the conversation. Hey, Joel.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. So the way that I always like to start these is a little bit of, foundational understanding. So tell our listeners a little bit about your work background, right leading up to the work that you're doing now.
Oh, wow. So I guess we're going over the resume. Is that what we want to do?
That's the idea, yeah.
Okay, so I am the old age of 45 now. And I started in the business many moons ago, probably when I was 14 or 15. And, as many chefs start in the business, I was in the dish room. My first job was in a Sweet Hill Country Club. That's my hometown. And I got promoted to cook a few years later, but while I was still in high school. So after a while, it became more than a job to me. So I decided to go to culinary school, where I went to Johnson & Wales out in Providence, Rhode Island, and spent 2 years there. And being the forever romantic, I wanted to move a little closer to home towards my high school sweetheart, who didn't get married. But so I found an externship here in Rochester. So I had called around to some chefs, and one of the chefs that was really interested in, continuing education for the people in our trade was Chef Charles Carroll, and he was at Oak Hill Country Club.
Okay.
So I did my externship there in the late 90s, and we really hit it off. So I got a job there after I finished my externship, and had graduated Johnson & Wales, and so I decided to stay on there. And was very honored to do so. So I'd worked part in the fine dining, part in the casual dining, and to be honest with you, I really did anything I could because I was a young buck and wanted to just absorb everything I could. So after a while, my chef, he was also a competitor in the Culinary Olympics, which is a small group of individuals in the ACF that compete overseas and in other areas of the United States. And he asked me if I wanted to apprentice with him. And I said, absolutely. He goes, well, I can't pay you. And I said, well, that's fine. So we started a great relationship there, and I would, just learn and absorb everything I could from him. And the other, certified master chefs that were part of that. And, we traveled to different areas, and we can come back to that too if you want. But
yeah, that sounds great.
But what it did is he got a position down in Houston, Texas, at River Oaks Country Club. So he asked me if I wanted to move down there, and I really didn't have any strings. So I and another chef moved down there, and I spent the next 3-4 years working there. Was the fine dining chef there, and actually took over the casual dining after that, which sounds kind of the opposite direction, but the casual dining at River Oaks was probably a $3-4 million a year operation. So it was a great management experience. From there, I got an offer to work at in Canandaigua at Bristol Harbor as the executive chef. So it would have been my first EC job, and was honored to do so. Was a little excited to move back home, but I miss Texas. Especially the barbecue, but we came up here.
I thought for sure you were going to say especially the weather, but the barbecue I'm sure was great too.
Yeah, the weather at least 9 months out of the year, it's absolutely wonderful down there. So actually, I met my wife down there, so I still go down. So went to Bristol Harbor and was the executive chef there for a few years, and then the uh, general manager at Oak Hill said, "Hey, listen, we lost our chef. I noticed you haven't applied." And I said, "Well, his name is Eric Rule." I said, "Well, Mr. Rule," I said, I think I'm too young and I don't think I'm experienced enough. I want to get some under my belt." And he goes, "Well, I think you should apply anyway." And he kind of did that. So I said, "Okay."
Uh-huh.
So,
A little
so
wink and a nod, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was good. So it was very intimidating, but I didn't want to back away from the challenge. So
Hmm.
applied, did a cooking test, and interview with the board there. I think I was 27 years old at the time, and got the job. And from there, I spent the next 4 or 5 years there. Did the senior PGA, not the full PGA, but the senior, and had an opportunity. My girls, I have two lovely girls, Sadie and Madeline, and they were, I want to say, 5 and 3 at the time, 6 and 4. The years go by fast.
Yep.
And decided that I wanted to try to find a little work-life balance.
Hmm.
So the catering manager that I had worked with at Oak Hill got the job here as the director at St. John Fisher University. At the time, we were college. I'm
Hmm.
sure you're aware, but so I decided to apply for that job, and I was like, "Oh wow, the cuisine I'm going to do there is going to be so much less. It's going to be less challenging." But the work-life balance really attracted me. I'd spent so many years working through just so many hours and just so many different things that I was excited for, maybe the next stage of my career, and got the job here. And I really haven't looked back since. And to be honest with you, the food that we do here and some of the things that the students do and the Buffalo Bills do with us here challenges me to this day. So it's different, it's fun, it's a little more cutting edge, I think. Learning new cultural cuisine and learning things that a lot of the kids have access to, the internet, obviously, and do a lot of research, and cultural trends happen so fast that in the university sense, they're types of cuisines that fly across my desk and my cutting board faster than they would have, I think, in my previous jobs and things like that.
Hmm.
So that is kind of the snapshot.
Got it.
That was a lot of words, so I hope I didn't, ramble on too much.
No, that was great. So,
Yeah.
how long have you been at St. John Fisher University now?
Yep. So started here in January of 2009.
Okay.
So whatever that winds up being, 14, 15 years.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a couple things I want to point out for listeners based on my understanding of the industry is that, and you glossed over this a bit, is that for Joel to be able to go into and you were the executive chef at age 27 at Oak Hill?
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
huge deal. So talk about that a little bit about like
Okay.
why is that
Wow.
unusual?
Um, well, I mean, Oak Hill obviously has a lot of prestige. They have a wonderful culinary program there. The golf is second to none, obviously, as you know. Um,
And
so
Joel's referencing, for anybody who might not know, the Oak Hill hosted the PGA last year, right? Was it last year?
yes, it was. I believe it was last year.
As you said, the time flies.
Yes, I love cooking. I'm terrible at golf. So when everybody's like, "Well, who's your favorite to win?" I'm like, I don't even know who's playing. But um, yeah, they've done the Senior PGA, the Ryder Cup, and all of that jazz. So back to the original question. What was it like? It was very intimidating, but
Hmm.
I refused to back away from the challenge. So there was a lot of research, a lot of studying. I mean, you spend your entire career in the culinary arts, continuing and furthering your education because there's just no stop to learning and understanding different ways of doing things and things like that. So I spent a lot of time doing that.
Hmm.
The chef that was there before, Chef Dan Scannell, he was a certified master chef. I was following in his heels. I was familiar with Chef Dan because he was part of the Culinary Olympics. So we had a rapport, but second to none chef. Just the food he put out. So I was green. I was just so green coming in there. So there was a lot of learning. There, in retrospect, there were mistakes made, but
Hmm.
it was what dedication you put behind it to, make sure that you rose to that level. And I'd like to think that I had a really good rapport there over the years, and I miss it to this day because, it was where I did my externship and, kind of learned a lot. So
Hmm.
it was tough. I learned a lot about, managing people and finances, because a lot of the individuals that work there and the chefs that work there for decades and some of the staff that had worked there for so long, I had previously, they had previously been people I looked up to, and I still do to this day, but I looked up to as, fellow associates, fellow colleagues, and now I was their chef.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of things to prove, and in a kitchen, it can be tough. So,
Yep,
um,
especially at 27, right?
yes,
You're this young buck. Who are you coming in
right.
here? I don't have to listen to a word you say. I know all
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it taught me a lot on how to earn someone's respect.
Mm,
Um, how to have somebody really stand behind you when you go into the battle of the kitchen,
hmm.
because, every night, especially Friday night and Saturday night are battles to, try to put out the absolute best product you can to a clientele while doing it at an extreme pace, while a wedding is happening behind you and being plated and things like that. So it was an experience I wouldn't give up for anything. So,
So my husband was an executive chef for a number of years.
okay.
He was down at his last executive chef positions were at Bellhurst Castle
Yep.
down in Geneva, and then
Mhm.
he was with a meal startup called Real Eats. And
Okay.
so he also always explained it in the exact same way that what he to this day misses about line work is that going into battle on a
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday night.
It's the only reoccurring dream I have.
Really?
Uh, yeah, it's the Friday night. Yeah, it's an art. It's a dance. It
Yeah.
really is. It's something we don't do here as much because of the style of service we do at St. John Fisher University. I mean, but I, I miss it. I do.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
also generally have Friday night off, so I don't miss it that much, I guess.
Right.
But
Right. Yeah. And
yeah,
actually that was my husband's motivation too, as our kids were born
yeah.
and he wanted to get out of the lifestyle that was a battle every weekend, right? And
Hmm.
move into something that was a better work-life balance. So I'm glad that he found that for us and our family. And I'm glad that you were able to move in that direction too, and that
Yep.
it's something that you enjoy so much, right? Because a lot of people
Hmm.
make compromises in that shift of, well, it's food that I enjoy, just as you explained, right?
Hmm.
Or it's work life balance and I can't have both. So talk a little bit about why and how you have both of those things at St. John Fisher University.
Sure. Yeah. Most previous jobs, as your husband probably knows, it was early morning to late night.
Mhm.
7 days a week. It was mostly 6 days a week. At at Fisher, and it took some time. There were a lot of hours we put in here. I don't want to make it sound like it isn't, a
Mhm.
challenge here, because we have our challenges, and it's important to us to develop a team. But we've developed such a wonderful team here. I got basically two executive sous chefs that we've worked together over 10 years now, which is just a lifetime in our business too,
Mhm.
because a lot of the staff and management and people you work with in this business are 2 to 3 year associates and colleagues. But we've enjoyed a management team here that's been together over 10 years. So with that comes a lot of growing pains, but at the same time a lot of cohesiveness and understanding, and we play off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. So that's where we've developed a work-life balance, in my opinion, as
Mhm.
well as some successes, because I'm able to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to be here Friday and Saturday. My sous chef picks it up. We know each other's standards, and what type of food we put out and things like that. And that's not to say there aren't challenges and that we still have to work through. I mean,
Mhm.
we've got roughly 100 to 120 employees here. At any one given time, we're training, 10 to 15 new in the fall semester. So, there's some learning curve for that. But in general, that work-life balance, I think, really comes from having a great team that you can rely on to communicate with and to handle issues when you're not there. And then vice
Mhm.
versa, when they're not here, you want to make sure that you're maintaining, those standards and expectations amongst the staff. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's where I really find it. I generally take 2 days off a week, which is just wonderful. In the business that changes here and there, and we have our downtime too that I really look forward to, because it's a time to kind of rebuild that personal side of what is so important, I think, in life.
Right.
So, the breaks in the summer and
Hmm.
the ups and downs. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah, and being able to
mhm,
work through that cycle.
yes,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
a great opportunity. So you talk a lot about people, and
hmm
you and I both know, and as do probably every single person that's listening to this podcast, that finding great people, especially in food service and restaurants in today's day and age, is a very difficult thing. What has that been like for you? I mean, have you noticed a notable change over the last couple of years since COVID, or has it kind of always been challenging to find people to
yeah.
stick around, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's evolved. It certainly has. 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't anything to have a completely different culture and a way of dealing with people in the kitchen. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have watched The Bear and read Anthony Bourdain and some other, the great shows out there. And there's a lot of truth in how we in the restaurant business deal with each other. Um, Probably got 100 stories there. I'm sure one or two of which is appropriate for this podcast. But regardless of that, things have changed in the business, and it's for the better. It really is. So there's a lot of cultural shifts in how we deal with our staff, the professionalism and what we go through, and being part of the company that I work for and having the pleasure of working at St. John Fisher has really you know polished and gotten us to a great way of dealing and handling and training, promoting, and on the off chance of disciplining staff. So the culture has really changed. So that's kind of one part of it. But with that, it's how do you use that environment to and that culture to encourage people to come work for you. And it really is a competition out there in making sure that you're able to attract the best staff you can, because at the end of the day, I may know how to cook, a great tikka masala or a great, chicken parmesan or whatever the dish may be. But if I'm not able to procure the staff that we need, that want to continue that culture and drive that excellence, then I'm really going to be struggling. And so a few things that I do, and I believe that you're part of the commissary downtown, right? Is community outreach. I serve on the board over at the Oasis program, which is part of the Rochester City School District. They have a culinary program over there.
Oh, great. I didn't realize
Oh,
that.
yeah. So I've been working with Chef Jeffrey over there, who runs the program. He's been there for some time, and he just has such a wonderful way about getting individuals ready for the industry that I think is difficult to do on your own as an employer, because I think there's a lot of lines that Chef Jeff is able to cross, both personal and professional, to get people prepared. So back to the issues that are out there. So I think that anybody can put an application out on Indeed and then look through there, and then you hope to get a great candidate. But when you have some of these partnerships in the community, working with other chefs, working with Chef Jeff over at Oasis, and having these connections out there, you're really able to kind of put the what you want out into the community in order to attract great staff. I hired 5 people from the Oasis program just last August, and all of them are all stars. So
That's
I've just been,
amazing.
yeah, I've been so excited, and you can, and with and they're varied in age, but these culinarians, some young, some, getting into their next career and things like that. That there's different teaching styles for all of these students, but what they
Hmm.
came to me with is a passion to be in the business, and
Hmm.
that's not something you can teach right away. It can be instilled, but at the end of the day, to really have that and have some individuals that come in with that passion already, it really encourages me to play off that and move uh, a lot of the pride and the education that we have in our kitchen forward. So that's what I'd like to hang my hat on. And I that's where I'd like to attract staff. It's I could put out ads and things like that. So, but back to your original question, you brought up COVID. COVID was it was terrible.
Oh, yeah. I can't.
For our business.
Yeah.
So it was terrible for a lot of people. I don't want to, play down what the wonderful first responders and, hospitals and, medical staff had to go through and things like that. But because that was just really tough. But, in our business, as you're aware, there was a lot of, restaurants were shutting down everywhere. So
Mhm.
what did people do? People went on layoff. Luckily, there were a lot of government assistance programs that helped, but it it paid more than what a lot of restaurants pay.
Right.
You know, not to get into too much nitty gritty in the podcast here, but it was difficult then to attract staff that typically would be, hungry for some of our entry level positions and, looking for a career because we're a very, hands on trade.
Hmm.
Um, we tend to, bring in some people that have varied levels of, higher education, and I'm very supportive of everybody that comes in that wants to learn. So I'm not
Hmm.
passing judgment there, but it certainly became difficult to attract staff. And then, excuse me, as we noticed over the year past, some of the, extended benefits had passed and things like that, we started to notice a real return to, people interested in applying and getting out there. So I would say it probably took a good 12 months past, the end of, the general pandemic when we were beginning to open up to really see an interest in applicants and
Hmm.
individuals to be out there. I'm proud to say now I feel like it's pre-COVID now, like it was pre-COVID. So
Yeah, right. Yep. It sounds like you felt the faucet turn off and you felt it turn back on. And that's something
yes.
that I haven't heard, because so many restaurants and food service folks are still having trouble attracting people, but they're not
Mhm.
doing what you're doing in terms of the community outreach and your work with the Oasis program. And you mentioned the Rochester Commissary. Joel and I are both entrepreneurs and residents in that incubator kitchen in downtown Rochester. And those are some things that really make a difference in your ability to find right fit people, right?
Right.
To come into the organization.
Absolutely. It's so much easier to hire somebody that has a personal connection with your employment already. And I
Right.
love getting referrals from current staff, especially ones that I just absolutely trust to run the kitchen, without
Hmm.
me. So yes, being out in the community, having people you can talk to, people you can bounce ideas off of, and things like that is just it's crucial in today's day and age. It really is. So I'm happy to say that I feel comfortable with our ability to employ at the moment, but I still hear some struggles from some of my colleagues out there. So,
Hmm.
but my personal experience. But yes, the faucet on and off was a great reference.
Hmm.
That's pretty much exactly what happened. So
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Mhm.
glad to hear that it turned back on. Um, what is the connection that St. John Fisher University has to the NFL?
Well, as hopefully most of your listeners know, but since I've started here, and I want to say 5 to 10 years before I started in '09, I pardon my lack of knowledge on the history here, is we host the Buffalo Bills training table. What is the Buffalo Bills training table? So that is when the team, coaches, and support staff come to our campus in from Buffalo. Uh, Again, if many of your listeners are probably aware, but and within our main dining hall here, our Ward Happy Dining Hall, the Buffalo Bills are hosted by us, and they basically sleep above us in the dorms next to us and above us, and then they eat generally about 5 meals a day with us while they're here on campus. Their schedules are predetermined by the coaching staff, so sometimes they go way back to Buffalo, but they're back here. And then we cater most of the food that happens besides concessions at the practice down here in the fields that are here. So we, have the pleasure of working with them, even though I'm a New York Giants fan, but I don't want to get it.
Oh, come on. All right, we're done. We're done. No,
I don't
just
want to get
kidding.
into that, but yeah. Um, so I've had a rough few years, but
So
they're
have the Bills.
wonderful. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, but they're wonderful. They just, I could think back through a few coaches. I wish I could remember all their names, but over the years, but Coach Sean and his team, they're just ladies and gentlemen. They're just wonderful to have here. So I've
And
held the campus for many years.
there's a your turkey burger has become famous with the Bills team, I understand.
Yeah, it's you would I had done a few interviews after, Josh put that out there. And so the tradition of doing turkey burgers here predated me.
Oh.
And so when I first started in 2009, there was one nutritionist and head strength training coach. There was one, I believe his name was Jay, again, many moons ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very regimented. This is when the family's players' day is. This is when, but they would always have a late night snack. So the late night snack would wind up being turkey burgers and baked potatoes every night. And I was like, wow, this is so boring. So it became tradition. So the late night meal was just that, and it was that way for years. And then, as you know, the NFL doesn't stand for the National Football League, as I've learned from the Buffalo Bills. It stands for not for long. So many of the staff have come and go, and I've had the pleasure of working with most of them. But the current regime really shook things up from a food perspective, which is just, it was so wonderful to see, because so many things they were kind of blasé. They really were. But hey, listen, they were hitting their nutritional needs. They were eating some leaner proteins, and they were getting what the coaching staff wanted. So now they're like, well, why don't we do a fish fry night? Why don't we do po' boys this night? Why don't we do a Mexican style dinner? So it all got shook up. So, but what didn't change is we would do some excellent lunches and dinners. We would always buy in some nice steaks. We'd do a lobster night, some of these things, and we just had a lot of fun with it. So I think it was on the night we were doing tenderloin and lobster that night. All of a sudden, I believe the communications director here at Fisher reached out, or somebody had sent me something. I don't know. It was all a blur. Said, your turkey burgers are trending. I said, we're doing lobster tonight. I said, what's happening? I was like, no, the turkey burgers are. I'm like, what are you talking about? So then I, started reading some of the social media posts and what Josh had said. So yeah, they took off. I mean, it's a simple ground turkey recipe that we season lightly, and if I got the right guy or gal on it, they don't overcook, so we're good. But they were flocking towards them. Like I was cutting up tenderloin to put in soup the next day because all the guys were eating turkey burgers, and so. Whatever
That's
they
so
want.
funny. Yeah.
It really was. So I walked up to Josh the next day. I'm like, what are you doing to me, bud? So he's like, and he looked at me. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you don't even know, do you? So, but obviously, I mean, he's aware.
Yeah.
So because at that point in time, here's the other funny thing is when that happened, the reality is there was avian flu. So I was still facing headwinds from the procurement of goods and food and things like that, commodities, because of COVID and, things that shut down. So, as you can well imagine, beef and cattle and things like that have a longer life, and that supply chain wasn't as interrupted as something as simple as, poultry was. So the country was completely decimated. I couldn't buy turkey to save my life. And he comes out with it's
the turkey burgers
burger
are the best. Yep.
And I was like, I can't buy turkey right now, bud. So I'm calling Palmer. Luckily I've got a great relationship with Palmer Food Service here in town, and the management staff over there just did a wonderful job. They switched all of their allocations on what little poultry they had to make sure that I had the product I needed to get through camp. Luckily, Dan Walsh over there and his team are Bills fans. So I was like, hey, listen, I said, you don't have to do it for me. You got to do it for the team.
That's right. That's right. They're the Palmer's team. Great people over there. They have an excellent reputation for really coming through with a lot of people.
They do. Yeah. And they came through that season. We scraped by. I mean, I wasn't going to tell anybody how close it was. And then I had people call me. I'm like, where do you get these? And what do you do? And what's your recipe? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you now.
Right. So, yeah, these are world famous now.
Well, that, and I didn't want them to buy turkey.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
They were literally my competition for procurement at that time. So I was like,
right.
You've got 3.5 weeks and I'll tell you. So
yes, right. When the population comes back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was stressful for all the weird reasons. So
yeah, that happened. So I have a friend of mine, Meg Fuller, runs the marketing for Bristol Mountain.
Okay.
The ski resort here in the Finger Lakes. And so she was mentioning one day that she accidentally made some of her content go viral on, it was either TikTok or Instagram, and they had way more people flock there than they planned, and they couldn't, couldn't house them all. And so it's one of the double-edged swords of having something get super popular like that, right? Is that it
Yes.
gets in, oh no,
Yeah.
I don't have enough turkey to
Yeah.
make all these burgers.
Oh, it was stressful, but our team made it work. Palmer's made it work, and
That's
it
great.
was good. I had to start rationing turkey. I've never done it in my life, my
Yeah.
entire career. Never heard of it.
Yeah.
So
Goodness. All right, I got one more question for you.
yeah.
I'd love your thoughts on the larger food and beverage scene in general. And so that can either mean as it relates to the greater Rochester region and down into the Finger Lakes, or just the food scene in general across the United States. What are some of the things that you think could be changing or you'd love to see coming down the
Mhm.
pike, new innovations or, kind of practices in the restaurant industry and food scene? What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, that's a big question. Um, I'll probably stay to the Finger Lakes. I travel a bit, but I don't get out there as much as I'd like to. Maybe I'll speak to the university dining because
Yeah, great.
I really feel like I've had a lot of fun with that. I've done a lot of traveling with our company, mostly in the Northeast region. I've been to Northeastern, to Sacred Heart, to Hofstra University, and done a lot of wonderful things there. I mean, the food is just so cultural now, and it's so fast, and it's changing at such a rapid rate that it's almost hard to keep up. But it's what excites me now.
Mm,
So seeing a lot of those trends, and what's funny too is we're part of a pretty big company called Chartwell's Higher Education. We have the pleasure of having the contract here at Fisher. That's why I'm able to work at some of these other universities. We took over Carnegie Mellon a few years ago, had that opening, and things like that. So having the ability to network and pull from other chefs right now is
mm,
just really encouraging to me. And I would say that it almost feels like it went away during COVID. And if I was to say that there's one thing out there that I think us chefs should really take the time and kind of reinvest into, because I think it brings great ideas to the industry, is just reconnecting as peers that play ideas, recipes, and different types of food and management style from each other, because there's just so much out there for us, and it's almost like we're rebuilding a lot of what momentum we had before COVID. So to see us, really take the time and play those ideas off each other, and really do it humbly too, because there's
mhm.
so many chefs out there that just it's my way and things like that. It's just such an arrogant and ignorant way to get through what I consider a lifelong's education in our business and things like that. So
Yep.
when you could really partner up with a group of individuals and just play ideas off, you don't have to be the best chef to be at a
Mhm,
great place, but
mhm,
what makes you a great chef, and what I think drives a lot of trends in the industry, is when we listen to each other. So, I would say, seeing that happening and kind of reinvigorating would be wonderful. So, in the university world, we do it really well, when we visit other accounts and we go through ideas and things like that. So let's stay focused in on, mastering classical cooking while playing
mhm,
great ideas off each other, and, really pushing a lot of these niche foods and niche, cultural offerings that are now out there into the industry, and
mhm.
really spilling it over. So, in the Finger Lakes region, well, I probably don't go out to eat as much as I should. And if my wife ever watches this, she'll confirm that. I'm kind of a creature of habits. But when I get out there and I try new things, I just love it.
Mhm.
So when I go out to eat, what I look for, and I know you didn't ask this question, but I'm going to put it out there anyway.
Yeah,
It's just,
please do.
is simple done well?
Oh,
The first
yeah.
the first thing I look at is the menu. And when I look at a complicated menu, or a menu that doesn't have theme's the wrong word, but like a specific genre, or
Yeah.
a complete thought,
Mhm,
I'm usually automatically turned off, even though I'm really not a picky eater. People
mhm.
are like, when you go out to eat, you must be so picky and you critique. I really don't. I'm just happy that
Yeah.
someone else is cooking for me, to be honest with you.
Right.
But um, so what I like to see the trend being, and what I admire when I see it out there, is and this is people playing ideas off each other, is a really cohesive, small, well thought out menu.
Mhm.
Um, I've got nothing against the Cheesecake Factory. I haven't been there in 15 years, but like when a menu is that large, to me, nothing's done well. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
they don't, and I'm not,
Yep.
obviously calling
Nope.
anything out, but
I get the principle that
yeah,
you're looking for there.
yeah. So the trend, and it kind of goes back to your question, is the trend that I like to see, and where I am drawn towards, and what I do see is small, concise, well thought out menus with
Mhm.
great beverage pairings. I mean,
Mm.
I think a lot of the cocktails and craft beers out there in the Finger Lakes region are you know, bar none, some of the best in the world. And when those are paired with well thought out menus and just great ideas with a comfortable ambiance or a commensurate atmosphere, those are the things that I'd like to see, and I think that are going to be successful in the future. So
Yeah.
uh, and then with that in the university setting as well, we're seeing a lot of investment into dining programs because the students, it attracts students, it keeps students. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. We're investing a lot in ambiance,
Hmm.
millions at all these universities and colleges that we manage, to have the ambiance and the cooking,
Hmm.
that made to order feel, small, concise menus, not large, all you can eat type things. So I
Hmm.
think it goes between the several industries that I hold dear. So
Hmm. Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think that there's in a lot of industries, but in particularly food bev ag, because it's such
Mm,
a connection driven industry, all three, right?
mm,
That I think people are hungry, pun intended, for that connection, right?
right.
In many aspects of it. And so that's sort of what you're referring to in terms of I want that collaboration back where we can kind of bounce ideas back and forth with each other. And I'm hearing that, I'm feeling that
Hmm.
personally, and I'm hearing it from a lot of folks in the industry too, that there's a hunger for let's get back out to the conferences and the trade shows, and let's get a standing meeting on the calendar to connect and just see what's happening, in our
Absolutely.
like-minded industries. So I know I said last question, but this is my real last question. What's your favorite place to go out to eat with like a simple menu and a beautiful pairing?
Wow. So I met my wife in Houston, right? So her and I share an affinity for Tex-Mex and Mexican food,
Okay.
and it's my simple guilty pleasure. I have, and shout out to Guacamole. It's a restaurant here in the Penfield area, which is near the university that I go to. The owner, Gustav, I'm probably not saying his name right, is just a wonderful individual. And every time I go in, I have it's a simple menu. It's a great tequila selection. The drinks are done really well, and the food is just so incredibly simply made and well done. Like the rice
Mm-hmm.
is like triple, quadruple washed. It flakes
Mm-hmm.
apart nice. All the meats are fresh and done the right way. Everything's just done classically. It's so that's kind of like my wife and I's little go-to that we enjoy generally every Saturday afternoon. I think I'm getting old now because we try to get there around 5 o'clock. So I think I'm told that's early. So,
I love an
but
early dinner.
but the place fills up so fast that
Yeah.
I just kind of make it an excuse to run out of work early on Saturday when we can. So that's kind of been our go-to lately. But
Yeah.
everything is just done so perfectly and consistently. But I've had great meals at so many places. I just
Yeah.
that right now happens to be the one area that we love going to. So.
Got it.
And my phone's yelling at me that the battery's not. But
Well,
yeah,
we're all set. I think this was a great conversation. Thanks so much for
great.
taking the time, Joel. Really wonderful to hear about your background, and I think also to have you emphasize your rise through fine dining and then to go into a university scenario and be in such a happy place there, right? That you clearly enjoy the work that you're doing and the people that you're working with and the university as a whole. And so it's great to hear, such joy in your work.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you, and I appreciate all the support that Fisher gives us here as well, because they really are supportive of the program. And without that, I don't
Hmm.
think I would be able to build the team that we have here.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All goes hand in hand. Thank you for listening to Spilled Salt. I'm Maureen Bellatori. For more information about the podcast, visit www.agency-29.com. If you have questions for me or you'd like to recommend a guest for a future episode, you can send a message using the contact form on the website. Like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode.